things I got to do here. Mick just comes and, has a soda and looks good. And I'm doing all this work going on.
Well, and then in the broadcast, and this is a real term, the people who are normally just referred to as talent. And so I'm just talent. You're doing all.
So I'm like the senior engineer. I mean, I've been called a lot of things. I'm an engineer. I mean, that's pretty important to tell.
I would say there's a lot of adjectives. Executive, senior, engineer. Let's start there, and then we could pile on a couple other.
Along with the
Yeah.
But you're just talented. You look good. You say smart things. We appreciate you coming here on a Monday again. Again, we're here at Hannigan. Always enjoy coming here. They got us back and social distancing, and we get to grab a bite to eat. Always good to do it here. So always good to wake up. Thanks. So nice when you come in. So again, thanks. Sponsor, our sponsor, Riverview Insurance, and for all your insurance needs. Just hit up my brother's Riverview Insurance. If you just go over there, they got a office over in T, South Dakota, just down the road, just off the interstate there. So check them out for any insurance needs. So it's good. We got 2 cameras, and I'm going to eventually move over to that other camera because that's a guest today. What do you got going on?
Today I was working on a story about what it's like to be pregnant during the pandemic. And obviously I can't talk about personal experiences, but it's pretty interesting. I mean, and talking to OB/GYN, kind of explain what it's like and the questions they have. And my goodness, especially if you're like a first-time prospective mom, there's a lot of stress and tension involved anyway. And then you get the pandemic involved in it, and it's like you don't need any more personals than already got it. And how first of all, how it's answered management, safety element, and how you should ever hesitate to go to a hospital to get care. But apart from that, just how the protocol is a bit different. If you've had children in the past, or you're talking to people who've had children under normal conditions, it's a little bit different, and restricting the little milestones that go within a pregnancy, and how usually, you might have, let's say you got your mom with you for that first ultrasound or something like that. And certainly your husband and father, and how it's a little bit different now, and you have to figure these things out as best you can. But I think the ultimate deal is that with that, which is a big part of it's a family thing. And even like after you have birth and you want to get a bunch of people up to your room so they can all see that baby, and it's just concentrate on bonding with this new child that you have versus worrying about whether all these other people are going to get an opportunity to be a part of it right away, which is, and it's unfortunate that you're in these situations where you give birth to a kid and all of a sudden you got to isolate, quarantine, and keep everybody, these people who want, and you want them there, they want to be there, and all of a sudden you can't do it. But it's just part of our life.
Yeah. I lived with my daughter, had a baby, August, so with all the being safe and all that stuff, and going around her as much as we'd like to be, and then when the baby came, we weren't able to go up to the hospital and see her, and we had to wait until she got home, and then had to wait until we were all quarantined and safe and all that kind of stuff. I can relate to that story. There's a lot of interest in things that go into that.
I think overall, we all run into situations, or we all certainly read about situations where things are not like they used to be, and it comes in different forms. But when it affects you personally, It's a little different than when you're just reading in a newspaper about something that used to be this way and now it's this way because of the pandemic. But it's good that we're taking these measures.
Yeah, and you know, different is sometimes better. When my kids were born, my thought was always, I wanted to be old school, you know, stay at home, you call me, tell me what I had. But I had to go in there and actually be in the room and be amazing what women go through and do. But that's something I did not want to be in there. But I did, you know, I toughed it out. I handled it. Well,
You're a champ.
yeah. I mean, if you talk to the nurses that were in there, you know, they might have different words for that when I was there.
They should be more concerned about that.
There was one nurse that are female. He actually said, you know, if you're not, you can leave. And I looked at my wife. I said, I can leave. And I don't think so. So I stuck it out.
It's like taking out and pro wrestling.
So, you know, glad that somebody, you know, we really have heard a lot of negativity, negative stories about COVID affecting births, young children. You know, obviously there's stories about some moms and things like that. Obviously learning, but very fortunate that that's part of it. You know, a huge part of it.
Thank goodness it are you. That includes people who are 2 minutes old are not the targets of this virus.
Absolutely. So we have a guest today, based on waiting over there on Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon. Our guest, and before we let him talk about it, and then I'm going to have him join you, and I'll go on the other camera and speak to you as well. But our guest, Gary Cartwright, coach with New Falls Gorman, won his 500 game as a basketball high school. I mean, and he'll tell you this. I mean, obviously that's he honest, but you know, a lot of it, and it's just means he's goal, you know, and he is. But you know, I can talk about it because he doesn't have a chance to talk about it. But what a great milestone throughout your years covering, you know, seeing coaches get 200, 300, 500 wins. I mean, that's got to be impressive. I mean, just covering.
You just started with the math. How many games can you win here? Between 20 and 30 is about where you're going to end up there. You're going to hit the end of the road between 20 and 30, even during what, for a lot of people, one real obvious great season. And then you do the math on that, and he is stacking up year after year after year. It's so overwhelming how many games you got to win and how consistently you have to be a coach that helps kids out.
Absolutely. So we're going to bring Coach Roby over here, and you can take my seat. I'll go over there. And Coach Roby, come over and join us. First of all, thanks for joining us, Coach. And you know, maybe just for people that don't know, maybe kind of give a little background on, you know, obviously we talk about 500 wins, but where did you start out? And you know, how did you get those calls going?
Well, I tell you, you guys know my story. You know, it's my third year. Well, I am getting old, and I know we talked about that a little bit. That I would say that, but it's true. You know, I started my year right out of college at Northern State, and I was fortunate enough to be the head girls basketball at on College High School, and then I did the boys as well. That was the year we did both. Yep. So there was 1 year I did both, girls and head boys. And then I was hired at Aberdeen Central, and I did the girls for about 10 years. And again, I did both for like a year. And then I was hired at Sioux Falls and Gorman, I guess, for the last 16 years. Been doing this for about 16 years? Yeah, been in town 16 years. And like I said, coaching South 35 years. You know, like I said, I know you guys are talking about the 500 games or the 500 wins, but this longevity, you know, I'm fortunate enough to continue to do something I like or I should say, continue to do something I love to do. I'm very passionate about it, but I just haven't been fired yet. I'm about to. That's too humble. That's too humble.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. And, you know, I want to add, you guys were talking about, you know, your role here as far as on camera and who's doing the technical work and whatnot. But I think Coach Weidenbach has a great face for radio.
You're not the first person or the last person that will ever say that, I'm sure.
Voice is right there, though. That's a good broadcast voice, irrespective of the, you know, whether it's delivered with sound or with video. It's good voice.
Yeah. This voice can talk and, you know, sounds okay on a radio, but if you want me to sing, it ain't happening because this voice is not made for singing. So, Coach Roby, you know, you mentioned some of your stops along the way. And let's kind of work our way backwards. Let's first talk about Saturday. You know, how long had you known that you're coming up on 500? You know, you every time you mark another one on the board, and you know you knew this was coming up, or you know how was that process?
Well, it's funny you say that. I mean, I knew it was coming because last year when COVID hit, you know, I would sit down and, you know, you're in your apartment and there's, you know, nothing to look at. And I'm there by myself and I'm watching film and I'm thinking to myself, you know, I think it was close to get to 500, you know, a year ago. And I thought, you know what, if we didn't get the state tournament called off, I knew I was 3 games away. And I thought, you know, who knows what could have happened. But so I knew it was close, but, you know, I kind of, not that you forget about it, but it's kind of on the back burner. And I know, like you called the timeout, Coach Weeds, with 9 seconds left. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? You know, 9 seconds left. And I don't know what the score was, but it was, you know, almost a 20-point game. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? Is he trying to get? So at first, when I, you know, saw the timeout or heard the timeout, I thought, did somebody get hurt? So I'm kind of, you know, glancing around the floor, and then it dawned on me what he did. So, you know, I didn't forget about it, but at the same time, you know, I know this is going to sound crazy. It is what it is. It's years ago, it probably would have meant more to me than it does now. Again, people are probably listening and they're probably thinking, yeah, right. But it's longevity. It means I'm old. You know, I told the guys afterwards, you know, I'd like to get to 519 this year, which means we have a heck of a run going, but it's pretty cool in the regards of, you know, the number of you know, 500, but at the same time, it's really not that big a deal. Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah. Go back to the start then. Do you remember your first win?
Absolutely, I do. You know, I was coaching the Roncalli girls, and we actually had a pretty good squad that year. We ended up 12-8, and I could list out all the players and the starters, and we had 2 seniors on that basketball team, and I took it over for Tom Murphy, who was a longtime athletic director at Roncalli, and you know, I was wet behind the ears. You know, I was basically 21 years old, I guess, or 22. I can't remember the exact year I was, but you know, with the Roncalli program, I was very fortunate to coach like the 8th graders when I was in college. So I got my feet wet a little bit when I was in college coaching junior high basketball. So I knew a lot of the kids, and I knew I did my student teaching there and did my you know, junior 8 experience, all that kind of stuff for Roncalli. So they hired me. It was my first job, and I was very fortunate to kind of take over a great program, I thought, within the NAC. And yeah, I remember we were playing Clark early on in the year, and you know, we ended up winning the basketball game. So. What was it? Were there things initially? I mean, you had some experience here, insight into what you were getting into as a coach, but were there things like that first year where it's like, okay, I didn't know this was part of it?
You know, it's funny you say that. Whether you're an educator and or a coach, you come across that. There was, I think every teacher or every educator can tell you this. There's a point in your first year when you think, is this really for me? You know, I was, again, I could just horror stories of me, my first year of teaching. I was at Roncalli High School, and I was 21 years old, and I was teaching 18-year-olds. And they were very, very smart kids at Roncalli, and I'm teaching them right out of college. And we're, you know, again, I'm trying to discipline kids. I'm trying to meet, you know, the criteria as far as academically and all the, you know, the standards. And it was tough. And I got about halfway through the year, and I thought, I don't know if this teaching profession is for me. You know, it was just a tough deal. Same with coaching. You know, you gain experience along the way, and you always hope to maybe make a dent in the coaching end of things. You know, early on, I think, you know, I'll be honest with you, you always look, you know, I wonder if I could ever, I think there are maybe selfish goals, personally selfish goals. You know, now me being 56 years old, the goals that I had back then certainly aren't the goals I have now. You know, I have things way more in perspective. But back then it was kind of a selfish goal on, hey, how many wins can a guy get, or can you be coach of the year, or can you, that stuff. Again, I know this is going to sound like a cliche, but that means very little to me at this point in my life. It just really doesn't. And I know you guys are, you know, we're creating a, you know, a great talk show here tonight talking about 500, but I get it. And, you know, it's a standard, if you will, but at the same time, it means very little to me at this point. You know, 20 years ago would have been, you know, I probably had a different perspective of that, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Coach Walks for Northern State. Coach Walks, a legendary coach for Northern State. And I remember when I had him in class and I went into his office, he always had his 100-win basketball on his lap sitting in his desk. And then he had a 200 basketball and then a 300, and he had it all the way up to 500. And I remember looking at that picture thinking, my gosh, that'd be kind of cool to get to 500. So I think selfishly, when I first started, when I was, again, first getting into coaching, you kind of think, yeah, you know, I'd like to get to 500 someday. But now it's really like, is it really that big of a deal?
Well, I would think, though, apart from that, and I understand it, but that it's a reminder, a number that you can attach to, that I really like what I'm doing here, and I have this opportunity. I've had this opportunity. I'm grateful for it, and I've hung in there because it's something. There's no way you would be in it if it wasn't something you like to do.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. No doubt about it. You know, my wife always gives me static. You know, I would go to work every day if I could. I love what I'm doing, teaching and coaching. Again, it's not a job to me, it's a lifestyle. And, you know, I can honestly tell you this, if I would win the lottery today, I would coach tomorrow. That's just me. I wouldn't want to be, you know, doing anything else than what I'm doing now. And, you know, people always tell me, they said, well, when are you going to retire? Well, I don't know. When I would, if I ever retire at this point, I don't see the end right at this point. I don't know what I would do. I don't have any other hobbies. This is what I do. I just coach and I love the game of basketball. I'm very passionate about it. And, you know, this is coming from a guy who hardly played growing up in high school, but I'm very fortunate to have a lot of really good assistant coaches, obviously, but I'm just very fortunate to always have been in school systems that have been very successful. So, you know, I kind of always just kind of reap their benefits, if you will.
You mentioned your playing days briefly because, you know, there's not a lot to say about it. But, you know, obviously Coach Munson was your coach and a huge influence on you throughout. Maybe talk about Coach Munson and other people that influenced you in the coaching profession.
Well, Coach Munson was a big influence. You know, he's my high school basketball coach. And for many, many years, I always joked that I was the 20-point man. You know, I only went in when we were 20 points up or 20 points down. But I did play. We were on a very good, we had a very good team as a senior, got third in the state tournament. And I played very token minutes. But I never, ever complained about my minutes because the people that were playing in front of me were very good players, you know, and I loved being in that environment. You know, like there again, you know, some of my buddies chose not to be on the basketball team. It probably could have been, but for me, it was always, you know, I don't necessarily care that I'm playing. I just want to be part of this group. It was a culture back then that I was proud to be part of. So even though I didn't play a lot in high school, I just loved to be around those guys and to wear the Mitchell Colonel basketball jacket. So Munson was always very, very kind to me. And he knew my role and I knew my role. But he influenced me in more ways than you would think because of the way he treated me. You know, I spoke at Coach Munson's funeral, you know, rest in peace. I always said this, you know, Coach Munson, whether he knew he was doing it or not, I don't know, but he always created a culture that made me believe I was a special part of that basketball team. Now, here's a guy who, again, he could have cut me as a junior and senior and nobody would have thought, well, he ripped off that kid. Nobody would have thought that because I probably would have deserved that. You know, I wasn't that talented of a basketball player. But he always made me feel special within the group and that I wanted to be there. So I worked hard. I knew what I was going to get out of it, but I just wanted to be part of it. And so certainly he was a huge influence in my life. You know, I'd like to, you know, again, Gordon Fosness. I know Gordon Fosness passed away just a few weeks ago. Same thing. You know, I was the ball boy for the Dakota Wesleyan and boys. Chris Fosness was my best friend for many, many years. And we went on a lot of NAIA basketball tournaments down in Kansas City. When I was in junior high and high school, we were the ball boys to, you know, the Wesleyan Tigers. And I loved that lifestyle. And I loved what Coach Fosness was mentoring. Even to this day, you know, he would write me notes. He'd write me notes every single year. And again, talking about how proud he was, what I was able to do. And I think I was just kind of, I don't want to say molded real early, but I just wanted to be like those guys. I wanted to be like Coach Munson. I wanted to be like Gordon Fosness. When I got to college at Northern State, Coach Bob Olson, who was the head women's coach at the time in the 80s, early 80s, he was kind of a mentor as well. He was my advisor at the time, and we got to be really close, especially when I was at Ron Colleen Central. And then, of course, he took over the boys program and a very successful basketball coach. But, you know, those three coaches right there, you know, inspired me, mentored me. They're good friends of mine. And, you know, like I said, I don't know if I just wanted to echo their life, or I don't know what it was, but there was something that drove me to want to be like them, I guess.
And then, you know, now you've got some coaches that are really good friends of yours that you coach against. You know, Coach Neuendorf over at Mitchell, for example. What's it like to coach against somebody that, you know, you really like to spend a lot of time with, but then, you know, you really want to beat them too?
Hey, I should give a shout out to Noodles today, or Coach Neuendorf. It's his birthday today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how old he is, but he's not as old as I am, but he's old. But you're exactly right. Coach Neuendorf and we coached together at Aberdeen Central for a while with Coach Small and did some scouting trips together. And we became very, very good friends. And he's probably my closest friend in the world of coaching. You know, I'm very happy for his success. But you're exactly right. When we compete against each other, we're trying to beat each other. In fact, this summer we got together at Okoboji and we both kind of laughed about somebody told him, they said, you know, you and Coach Roby must just hate each other because you are so intense when you guys are going against the O'Gorman Knights or vice versa. And he said to this fan, he said, well, ironically, we're pretty good friends. And, you know, it's funny how that works because he is a very close friend. We talk almost daily, and that's kind of unusual. And we talk about family. We talk about the X's and O's. We're talking about just what we're trying to do to build up each other's program. And, I steal a lot of stuff from him, and I'm sure he's doing vice versa, yeah, you're exactly right, Coach Weidenbach. He's a good friend of mine. And I think, when, we talk about the 500 wins, I think that's what I cherish the most, is the relationships that you build. And I thought back in the last, week or so, I thought, what, think of how long I could do this. And the relationships I have with some of these coaches is phenomenal. And I'm very proud of that. And same with the players. It was really cool on Sunday to the day after our game to have hundreds of alumni and athletes that I've coached in the past reach out and tell me congratulations. And again, it's a cool moment because of the milestone, but that means way more to me than the actual number of 500.
So let's talk about some of those players that you've had. Any players that stick out? I know that's a loaded question because you've had so many good ones, but maybe some players that you had a unique relationship. Obviously, your son was a player for you. That's a unique relationship. You've had some great players that went on to have great college careers, and maybe some of the early ones that you see now that maybe you're coaching against their kids.
It's funny you say that. One of the pride I have in this whole teaching and coaching profession that you dedicate your life to is in today's world you get to see a lot of them on social media, and it's really cool to see these kids that I've coached years ago and their families and to actually maybe even coach or teach their families. I'm teaching at St. Mary's Elementary. I'm teaching a whole handful of kids that I had all their parents at Rod College. So it's classic. So I'm getting that turnaround. I'm actually one of our freshman kids in our program at O'Gorman. I coached his dad at Aberdeen Central. So, it's all kind of coming full cycle, but, I'm very, very fortunate to have a whole crop of great kids. Like I said, Coach Weidenbach, I could list off our starting five for the most part, my very first year of coaching. And they were all, again, a handful of girls that I'm still in contact with today. I love to see their success as families on social media, and it's just really, really cool to see that and to hear that. But, I've been very fortunate to have, a backtrack. You got guys like Matt Cartwright, who, I can easily say Matt is one of the most talented kids I've ever coached. And that's pretty evident. That's not a secret. I mean, heck, he was Mr. Basketball. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year, the AA Player of the Year. Any award he could have won that had any significance, he won it. And of course, we won the state title that year. So very fortunate to have players like him. When we won 41 games straight or whatever it was, we had the likes of Cedric Lang and Sterling Nilsson and Keith Moffitt. And I mean, those guys were just talented kids. I mean, there was that year, that would have been 2011. We had three kids that made first team All-State, Keaton, Cedric, and Sterling Nilsson. And that's besides the Mitchell Colonels who did it like in the 84 era. I think they had, let me think about this a little bit. They had Chad Anderson, I think Tim Bird, or not Tim Bird. Yeah, it was Tim Bird. Okay, Chad Anderson, Tim Bird, and Frederick. Those guys, they made first team All-State. But other than that, I don't know if any AA school has really had three guys out of the six make first team All-State. So, I have to make mention of those guys. Certainly, my first years here at O'Gorman, you have the likes of Dusty Coleman and Tyler Schulte, Levi Pohl, Trey Career, all those guys.
I covered that first championship, and my goodness, and you kind of get to know these guys a little bit over the years, and great kids, super duper kids,
great kids. And again, they're better people, more players. But I just kind of walked into a gold mine when I came to town. And when I was at Aberdeen Central, I had Derek McCauley move in. Derek McCauley was a kid out of Waubay that came to us as a senior, and he was a phenomenal player. And I could tell you story after story on what Derek McCauley did for me and our program and our culture. But guys like that, I mean, the list goes on and on. We had a player, Chris Knight, played for us at Aberdeen Central. Chris was just a pure shooter. And, we had a really good team back in that era. I'm going to say, let me think here, that would have been 2000-ish. We had a really good team with Chris Knight and the Rowan kid. I'm drawing a blank on something because I am old. But we went into the state tournament. We were, in those days, you only played 18 games. We went into the tournament 17-1, and we came out 18-3. We lost our first game in overtime to Watertown, and Chris Knight sprained his ankle real bad. We lost in overtime and ended up just couldn't recover. We had high hopes of maybe winning the state tournament. But there again, I know maybe some of these kids are going to be watching this, so they're going to say, hey, how come you didn't mention me? Guys, I've just tried to think, but bottom line, when you get to my age, you're just thankful. And I've been so fortunate to have a plethora of kids that have really made an impact on me and my life and the culture of our basketball program.
Mm-hmm.
And then, your culture, let's talk about that. You mentioned earlier, your wins, they don't mean as much to you maybe as they used to because you're concentrating more on other things. What does that look like in the O'Gorman program?
Well, real early when I was fortunate enough to get involved or be hired at O'Gorman, again, I just walked into a gold mine. I thought Coach Mike Begeman had an established program, and I just kind of walked in and I was kind of riding his coattails, if you will. And we were able to win. And real early, I wish I would have, tried to trademark the term culture. Culture wins, because now a lot of programs do it, but early on I've always said that. I said, our culture is what's winning basketball games here, because of what Coach Begeman did and what I inherited. We had guys that just believed they were going to win, and that goes so far. One of the first couple of years I was in the state tournament, we were able to win state tournaments real early. I had a student manager, I'll never forget it, we were riding the bus, and she made the point to me, and this is after I've been, I must have been coaching about 15, 20 years. And she said, well, how many state titles have you been coaching? And we're on our way. We just had mass, and we're on our way to the state title game. But I looked at her and I thought, well, this is going to be the first one. She was kind of baffled by it because O'Gorman was in it years before. And, obviously a successful football program with Coach Geeter. It was just kind of the culture of O'Gorman and what they're able to produce. And I was just fortunate to get into it. So I always established that term that, it's about the culture. It's about the school itself having high expectations, and our kids have high expectations. They we went through a couple of years there where they just believed they were going to win, and we weren't the best team. But they just believed that somehow or another we're going to find a way to win. And that's nothing that I'm doing. That was just put in by the culture of the school. And now we kind of live and die on that, to believe that, culture wins. And it's special to be part of this. We believe that. I think it's special to be part of it as a coach. I'm sure we talk to our kids all the time about when you put on this uniform, what it means to other kids to want to be doing this, or maybe past alumni who have put it on before you. I mean, there's something about putting on a night uniform. And I said, never forget it, because there's so many people that want to do it. And we try to maintain that culture and that positive, atmosphere and environment. And it is what it is.
Well, it's funny, you see, when you see it's usually in reference to individual skills, but it's like, okay, you can't teach that. Well, if you're going to teach culture, you can do it, but it usually takes some time, and it takes maybe a predecessor who had it where it's like, okay, you're inheriting some of this. The kids know from 7th grade or whatever on that this is how we do things, and it's tough to measure that, but certainly it's an invaluable part of any legacy of success.
Well, I like to think so. We preach to our kids. And a couple of years ago, we had kind of a slogan like everybody does. And ours was, it's what we do. And in fact, ironically, I took it from Neuendorf and Mitchell. And it's not, it wasn't be arrogant. Hey, we're winning games and it's what we do. It wasn't meant to that. On my end, it's what we do. In 2017, we were fortunate enough to win the state tournament. I always told our kids there are certain programs that don't do things the way we do. We expect you to have your shirts tucked in. We expect you to get on a jump rope and jump before practice without being told. We expect you to get underneath that basket and groom your shot. There's little things. We expect you to handle talking to the officials this way or whatever. It's what we do. I don't care what the other schools are doing. I could care less. But what we're going to teach you is this way, this way, this way. And to me, that's how you develop culture. And there's just expectations on what you would, want your kids to develop and to live by. And we try to do that. And, not every school does it. Not every school makes their kids tuck in uniforms. Not every school makes their kids go around and pick up basketballs. Not every school makes their kids pick up the opponent's locker room when it's, but that's what we do. And that's a culture that, if you want to belong here, I expect you to be a good kid in the classroom. You better be sitting in the front row unless the teacher gives you a seating chart, but you better be that kid that stands out in the classroom as well. That's an expectation I would have as a coach. And I've just been fortunate enough to kind of preach that and to get kids to buy in. And like I said, I do believe that wins.
And then Mick mentioned, 7th and 8th grade, and the kids coming up in your program, they get a sense of that through your assistant coaches that work down with the 7th and 8th graders, your freshman coaches, and so on. Maybe talk about your coaches at the lower levels and what that means to have good coaches down there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I've been so proud in all my years of coaching and trying to develop a culture. Of this year, we actually have, well, let me do the math here. I think we have 5, am I counting right, Coach Weidenbach? I think we have 5 or 6 past kids that have coached for us, or that have played for us, that are now coaching in our system. We have my son Alex, who's now our JV coach, and he played for us. He was part of the 2010 championship. We have, at the freshman level, we have Zach Cole and Sam Jacobson, and they were both part of the 2011 championship. They were part of the team in 2010, and we are fortunate to win back-to-back. So they're the freshman coaches for us. And at the junior high, we have we have Isaac Struck. Isaac Struck was in 2000 and help me out here, 18-ish. But we always hear Isaac Struck on the radio for us. But him and Connor Nagel, we just hired Connor Nagel. So we got basically, like I said, we have 5 kids that play for us. On the girls' side, we have Danny Hughes. Danny Hughes was very instrumental in that 2010 championship. He would have played a year before my son. They played together for a while at USF. But Danny Hughes is now coaching on the girls' side of things. So just within our building, we have 6 former our alumni, if you will, that came throughout our culture that are still coaching. I know Rob Burns, my first year, he was with Tyler Schulte and Dusty and those guys. The Rob Burns is what we always called him. He's actually doing some basketball coaching down in, I think he's still in Arizona. So I'm just proud that some of these guys are still coaching and still part of this, and they must have had a positive experience about it if they're still doing it. But I mean, that to me was just, I just have a great feeling about that. I mean, what program can say they have 5 alumni that are actually on the coaching staff with them? So it's a proud moment. It's one that I kind of like to brag about because that's pretty cool.
Well, that would be one where you can measure culture that way, and that the number of people who had such a positive experience both at the school and within your program and with basketball that they hung in there. They wanted to stay.
I'll tell you, that's true. And I'll tell you this, one of the things I just cherish, and every athlete that came through our system will tell you this is true. I'm not just saying this because I'm on the radio here or on the internet, whatever you want to call this thing. We invite all our guys back for all our games, obviously. They still come into the locker room before game, at halftime, after games, and they're involved in our pre-game speech. They're involved in that. When our guys take a knee and give thanks for being in the program that we're in, and or to be thanked for the talent or the pre-game prayer. We have alumni that are in our locker room that just come in. So they're attending the game and they walk in. And there's nothing better than that for me as a coach to see all these alumni. We point them out, hey, here we got Connor Schaefbauer in the room, whatever. We have these guys that still do it without, they just know they're always invited during the summer. So we have guys coming in, like I said, at halftime. Our locker room there's days, some games, I'm not making this up. You have let's say 15 varsity guys. There are days when we have 20 or 30 guys that are standing around listening to Coach Ropey or whoever talk in the program, and they're always invited. We love it. But, we still have an old-fashioned open gym where we invite all of our alumni come back and play. And our open gyms are a little different than I'm old school. I know we get kind of a green light to work out guys in the summer. We don't do that. I know that sounds crazy. We don't do it. We let our guys come to the gym and play. They play from the moment we open up the gym, and they just play. We hardly talk to them. We'll say hi to them, but I want our kids just to play. That's how it was for me and Mitchell up in the old armory of the Corn Palace. We just play. And we have alumni after alumni that will text me and say, hey, when are you playing tomorrow? I'm going to come to the gym. And they still come. In fact, we kind of have to put a limit on them because they're taking away some of our current players' playing time at open gym. But our door is always open for those guys. And here's the grandpa coming on me, but I love those guys. And again, I know we've been talking about the 500 wins, but that relationship, that culture means way more to me than the number, if you will. I love those guys. They're a big part of my life. I can't imagine, going through, games without them. And again, I know people are saying, that's not true, but yeah, I tell our guys, I love them. And I'll tell the current guys I'm coaching, I love you guys, and Coach Weidenbach will mention that. And one of the years in 2017, when we were fortunate to win the tournament, he always tells a story that, we wrote it on the chalkboard. We're in the championship game. If they don't know what we're doing by now, they're not going to know it. And the only thing we wrote on the board before they went out there and played Aberdeen was, hey, I love you guys. Let's go out and play. I know that sounds like a Hoosier moment, but that's the way it is.
Absolutely.
But, you mentioned the locker room, and I've been fortunate to be in your locker room. Not only the alumni that is in there, but your locker room it's amazing how many people come in or you allow in there. Little kids, kids that maybe you're teaching at St. Mary's, or kids that are at the game that you've allowed me to bring in families, things like that. And I always think that's unique in the sense that it's such a great place, the locker room. But where did that come from? Did it just kind of evolve?
I'm not sure. I know years ago when I was at Aberdeen Central, I invited parents to come in. Believe it or not, think of that brainstorm. Okay, I can't remember if I had a contest or we just named a coach of the game, and I invited a parent to come in. Like a dad or a mom who we knew ahead of time. We'd say, hey, we're going to have our coach of the day, and we let them sit on the bench with us. It was the craziest thing. They loved it at the time. So I think early on in my career, I thought, I'm not going to have anything to hide. I want them to see what their daughter or what their son is going through. So early on, we started doing that, and we kind of got away from that a little bit, and then we started having the future, at the time, future Eagles and or now future Knights We started introducing kids for the starting lineup. Hey, they get a run out there, they have a t-shirt on, and to hear their name in the starting lineup. The state association kind of told us to get away from that a little bit, but those were all things that I thought were important, to build a program, to let the kids know how this is what we do. This is what I want you to be part of. At summer basketball camps, I always tell our kids, I said, you know what, you want to be playing on this floor someday. This is what we expect, the hard work, the discipline, being together. And again, I'm fortunate to be part of a culture as far as Sioux Falls Gorman, where the career kind of really turned around. But I'm just fortunate to be part of a culture, a high expectation in the school, the classroom, on the athletically, the success that the O'Gorman Knights have had. It's just been, like I said, I've been just very, very fortunate.
You mentioned earlier your son Alex played for you, won a state title, now on your coaching staff. Maybe talk about Alex and some of the things that he's meant to you in the program. And then obviously we got to talk about your wife. There's a Mrs. Roby, a Mrs. Coach Roby behind the scenes that's been through the 500 wins, but she's also been through all those losses and stuck with you.
Well, that's certainly true. Well, let's talk about Alex first. This might get me emotional because, obviously, if I were going to write a book or a story and you early in your career on what you would like to accomplish with your family or with your son, it couldn't have happened. It was a storybook ending for him in his career. You keep in mind, my wife and I didn't used to get in arguments about it, but when Alex was in like second or third grade, I would pull him out of school in Aberdeen and he'd ride the bus with me. And I remember the conversations sometimes where, my wife would say, "Are you sure you want to have Alex tagging along?" And there was just so much you learn on the basketball trip that you can't teach in the classroom. So I always pull him along and he'd sit right next to me on the bus and all the kids knew him. And I shouldn't tell this story because people are going to think I was a great parent. But there was a time I took him to Huron, the Huron Arena. And everybody, if you're familiar with South Dakota basketball, you know how big this is. And there was one time in the middle of my game, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I've seen Alex for a while. Now he's in second or third grade, and my wife is still back in Aberdeen, I'm sure. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder where he's at. So I'm kind of looking around over my shoulder. Has anybody seen Alex? Well, I could see him up in the clear up in the walking the Huron Arena, the very top. He grew up around basketball and around coaching. That's all he knows. He jokingly said, he's been through more, locker room speeches and, people talk about, well, the experience he's had. I mean, he's been in and out of the locker room more than anybody. Growing up, you still want to be a father figure, but, let's be honest, he's, one of my best friends. He still is. And even his wife, Morgan, will tell you that, there's just kind of a unusual relationship between Alex and I. He's my son, obviously, and we have that relationship, but he's also, again, like my best friend at this point and somebody I go to for advice, coaching, and he's been through a lot already, and he knows me, obviously, but to have his career end the way it did, when we made the move to Sioux Falls, my wife and I brought him in and said, "Hey, here's the deal. We got an opportunity to move down to Sioux Falls, and this is what it's going to entail." And we asked him what he wanted to do, and he flat out said, "We're going to move. Let's do it."
Good.
And so he was a part of our varsity basketball program as a freshman on up, and very instrumental as a freshman on up. And a coach's kid goes through a lot. You know that. Every place we played, he got the chant, coach's kid. He got it all. But, he had to prove himself, and I think he did. Well, I know he did. But that's me not bragging about my son. But he was in a tough spot because no matter where he went, people were harassing him or giving him a static about, hey, you're on the plane because your dad's a coach. So he had a lot to prove, but I think he did that. And, you know, he was a 3-year starter for us and an all-stater and all-tournament. He did all those things. He was up for Mr. Basketball. But what's unique about Alex is, and I'm not making this story up, when he played at USF, they wanted him to write a script up of what his accomplishments were on the basketball floor in high school. He had to call me and ask. That meant very little to him, to be an all-state athlete, to be up for Mr. Basketball. He just wanted to. He was a true team player. He was a very competitive person. He's just like his dad. We're still competitive, but the awards mean very little. He wants to be part of a group, part of a team, and we always had a special bond. And for him to be able to, you know, cap it off against his former team. You know, he wins the state tournament as a senior, you know, and we're going against Aberdeen and all these guys that, you know, when he was in Aberdeen with me, I coached his traveling team. So I coached all the Aberdeen kids. They were all his kids. And when we were in the semifinals in 2010 and we saw we were going to be matched up with Aberdeen, his buddies from Aberdeen, he looked at me in the locker room as I'm talking, and his smirk was, I knew right then we were not going to lose that game. There was no way you were going to let us lose that game. Couldn't wait. But, you know, we were fortunate enough to win the tournament, and Alex was an all-tournament player for us. And how do you cap that off as a father-son relationship to go through all those years of being the ball boy and to be part of the program now you're playing the state title game against your former team. And it created a very special bond. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. He would tell you this if you sit right here. There were times when him and I both wanted to probably strangle each other, but that's part of growing in athletically. But a very, very special young man. He knows that I love him to death, love his whole family, and we're thrilled to death that he's part of our staff. And he's helped us tremendously already. Now Coach Weidenbach asked me about my spouse, my lovely bride, Kim. She has been at every single game, for 35 years for the most part. And when my son played college basketball, there were times where she was going to 50 or 60 games a year. So people laugh when I tell her, or they said, well, was your wife at this game? I said, no, her days of being at all these games are over. But she used to go to every one, home and away for many, many years. She knew the guys, she knew, we'd talk about them, when I wasn't at the gym, we'd be talking about certain guys and the problems I was having, the frustration or how to motivate. She's been around forever. And, there's something unique about coaches' wives, because they have to sit there and listen to the fans yell at their husband. And it's hard, and any wife will tell you that is a coach's wife. I know coaching, there's harder professions out there. I get it. And there certainly are. I'm not saying coaching's the hardest profession out there, but weekly you're going to hear people screaming and hollering at you. And now I'm so old, I could care less. But it still has to be tough for her to hear people in the stands yelling at me night in and night out because I'm making the wrong call or I'm playing the wrong kid. But she handles it so well, and obviously I love her with that. And like I said, it takes to be successful. It takes a very powerful spouse as well to go through the grind of this as well.
It would be easy to say, well, early on, you either make your peace with it or you don't, and then it's easier after that. And maybe there's some truth to that, but I don't think it would be easy for a spouse to listen to somebody yell at them and or all the other things that come with it, all the emotional parts of it, how you're put in this situation where it's just more emotional per month than it would be for a lot of other people, because you're witness to that. It's a public thing. But being able to be complimentary, as in making it whole, that's great. That's fantastic stuff.
She's been through so many of them, and she gets it. There's people that are banking on us getting to the state tournament. They're setting their family vacations around us getting to the state tournament, and she knows that. So there's so much pressure there for me to get a team back there, because I have parents that are making hotel reservations already, and she knows that, but she's so nervous for me. There's a lot of times where she can't even watch the end of the game because she feels it. She thinks, I don't want them to have to go through that. And she goes out in the lobby, and even at the state tournaments, there were times where she'd be out the lobby behind the bleachers, and she'd be watching the final moments of a state tournament game. She gets, so nervous for us because it is part of her life as well. But like I said, it takes a special, unique person to be able to be married to a basketball coach like me, and she's definitely that.
Awesome. Well, we're running short on time here, but a couple more questions real quickly. I've got a message here. Can you share a story about Coach Colesrud?
Did he write that in?
No, he did not.
First of all, I'll tell you this. Nobody will out-coach Coach Colesrud. And I know I tease him all the time because him and I have a great relationship. A lot of the schools, their boys and girls programs, they don't get along. They're fighting for gym time. They're fighting for summer camp time. And Colesrud and I get along great. He is a fantastic human being. Everybody that knows Coach Colesrud knows that. And, I always tease him about his academics. I always, that type of thing, which he's not, but I like to give him static about that. But I'll tell you this right now, nobody will ever outcoach Coach Colesrud. The culture he has built in the girls program is phenomenal. In 2017, they won their state tournament as well, and that was his first state tournament he won. And they played right before us in the arena, or in the Rapid City arena. And I'll never forget it because don't get me wrong, I was so happy for the girls to win that tournament as well. But I was just locked in to watch Coach Colesrud win that state tournament and be able to lift that trophy above his head because he's such a nice guy and he's been around this business for a long time and been very successful. He's kind of been snake bit on a couple tournament games here and there, but can you find a better guy than Coach Colesrud? Really? You can't. Again, nobody's going to help coach him. He's smart. He's a great guy. The girls love him. I learned from him. And so I know I give him static about eating too much and all that kind of stuff, but he's top notch.
That's good stuff. And then, let's wrap up again with 500 wins. You kind of mentioned, you don't think about retiring. You don't think about the total number of wins. You've won 6 titles. When people, talk about you're going to be in that mix of, Munson's and Roby and the coaches that have won a lot, where do you go from here?
That's a great question. I don't see myself retiring anytime soon, but what would it take? I don't know. I mean, I'm very fortunate as far as health and very fortunate my family is all in town and they're all healthy, but who knows what would happen. But I don't know how long I'll keep doing this. Again, it's my passion. I don't know what else I would do. I don't golf. I don't fish. I don't do anything else. I coach. That's all I know how to do. And that's even debatable if I know how to do that. But I mean, that's the only thing I know. So there again, I don't know how long I'll keep doing it. I know you mentioned, names up there in reference to putting me in that. That's not even close. I don't ever consider myself in the realm of the Lugents, the Munsons, the Hootens and all this kind of stuff. That's just, to me, I just can't even fathom that. To me, I'm just a guy that's trying to make a living. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do a job that I like. And I'm just trying to pay bills and make a living. I mean, I'm not looking to do anything else. But I'll tell you this, I've met a lot of really good people within my job, both as teachers, the fellow teachers I teach with, other coaches. The camaraderie with all of this is that's what you live for. And like I said, I go on vacation with some of these guys. I've gone on a cruise ship a few years ago with about 17 other coaches in South Dakota. It doesn't get any better than that. And that's what you live for. And the wins and losses, they take care of themselves. They really do. There's going to be some years where We're going to lose a lot of games. And you know what? Hopefully I'm fortunate enough to win a lot down the road too, but that means very little to me at this point. I just want to live healthy and continue to have a passion for this and develop the relationships with some of these kids. And I think I'm the luckiest guy. I feel like I have the best job in South Dakota as far as coaching. So I feel very fortunate.
And then, you got number 500 on Saturday. Obviously, on Thursday, it's going to be an easy 501, and then on Saturday, easy 502, right?
Oh boy! Hopefully, Mitch isn't watching that. No, you and I both know how these are hard to come by. Anytime you're winning at the AA level, it's hard because there are no freebies. And obviously, Roosevelt got us the first game of the year. They're very talented, very well coached, and there are no freebies. But you know what? Take one game at a time and try to build up for the postseason, and hopefully we're in a position to maybe get back to state tournament and to win some games and see what happens.
All right. Anything else, Mick?
I've never met the guy personally, but how big a jerk is Steve Keeter, your athletic director?
Yeah, you've never met him, I'm sure. Can there be a better athletic director than Steve Keeter? I mean, come on, he doesn't ever get into your way. He just lets you coach. And, I'm very fortunate that he is my boss. He is not only a great athletic director, but just his personality just makes me laugh. He could make me laugh the first 5 minutes of his conversation because he's going to tell you exactly what he's thinking. He's going to use certain adjectives to do it. And like I said, he just wants you to coach. And, and all my state titles, fortunate, I don't mean that to come across wrong. And the state titles that I was fortunate enough to win, he's one of the first ones that will come up and hug me. So I know he's proud, and I love working for the guy. He's super. So hopefully he's listening so I can continue to have a job if we ever have a bad year, So he's a heck of a football coach. I know that.
Yeah, you mentioned, I called a timeout with 9 seconds to go on Saturday, and in our huddle, here came Coach Keeter to give you a hug and congratulations. And that's awesome to have that support and that friendship that you have with him.
Yeah, and he wouldn't have had to do that, but he's always right there. So I love working for the guy. He doesn't need me enough, but I love working for him.
All right. So again, Coach, congratulations on 500, but more than that, congratulations on a good career up to now, and best of luck in your career going forward. And again, I know you well enough to, the wins are great, and, we're going to go out there and try to win every game, obviously. But, the relationships and the impact on those kids I see that you have is way more important than any win that you have. And I think that says a lot when you have 500 of them.
Well,
so I appreciate that.
Well, thanks, Coach. That means a lot. And like you said, you're a big part of this as well. I'm very fortunate to have the assistant coaches I have, yourself and my son and Coach Keppen. And I already mentioned about Sam and Cole, Zach Cole. I mean, I have the best staff in the world. So very, very fortunate to have you part of it. I mean, you've been part of 100 of it because you were here when we had 400. I remember out in Rapid City. So, you've been part of the culture and a big part of it for the last 100 for sure. So I know it looks like you've been here for about 300 of it, but the last 100 for sure. So I appreciate everything you're doing. Higher power sports has been so good, and you guys, again, all jokes aside, you guys do a great job with promoting it and what it stands for. And I'm just in awe at what you guys do, and Tim, on what you do as far as for South Dakota, not just athletically, but in the communities that have needs. And you're so good to South Dakota and the sport world. So I appreciate everything you're doing. And, I'm honored to be part of this. I'm honored to be on the internet right now. And I do have to ask, am I the only guy that's been on twice? I'm hoping I'm the only guy that's been on twice, because I think when this pandemic started, I was one of the first ones.
Well, you were.
I'm on every week. So.
Well, that's that's true.
I think Mick was number one, and you were the second guest.
Yeah, and now he's been on every week. But have you had anybody doubled up? Because I'd like to take.
I don't know if I have.
All right.
But one more question, and then we got to go. But Coach Begeman is watching and listening. So, do we have a side bet, or you want to give any? You want to give it? Are you changing the offense for Thursday? You want to give him any insight on Thursday?
Well, here's what we're going to do. If he is watching, which he might be, he's a great coach, great person. We're going to stand in a 2-3 zone. We're just going to stand there, let him shoot it. So he's going to have any look he wants. And on our end, we're just going to kind of pass around, and we're going to shoot a lot of threes. So that's all he has to do. We're going to shoot a lot of threes. We're going to stand in a 2-3 zone, see if he can handle it. Mitch will have it. Know that.
Well, absolutely. Obviously, Roosevelt's very talented, but Mitch is a great coach over there too. So we wish him the best of luck, except for Thursday and when we play him. So, want to again give a shout out to Shenanigans here, giving us this back room. So we're, you two don't look like you're social distance, but you are, and I'm on the other side of the room. So, we're trying to be responsible here, and we thank Shenanigans for helping us out with that. And Mick, thanks again for joining me, and we will do it again next week. Coach Roby, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate the way you run your program and everything you do for me and my family, and best of luck going forward.
Thank you much, Coach.